never thought my life would fall apart so quickly. Just a few years ago, I had everything I thought I needed: a loving husband, a home we worked hard to build, and the promise of a future together. But the moment I couldn't give them what they truly wanted, it all unraveled. The day my parents convinced my husband that he deserved better, they all left me. It started innocuously, as these things often do. At first, it was just little comments, whispered suggestions, and awkward glances that I tried my best to ignore. My parents had always been pushy. They wanted grandchildren. No doubt about that. My mother dropped hints at every holiday, every family gathering, always commenting on other people's babies and how cute they were. My father, less vocal but just as invested, would give my husband Tim a clap on the back and say things like, "You've got good genes, son. Can't wait to see them passed on." I laughed it off, thinking they were just excited for us to start a family. I wanted children too. Tim and I had talked about it many times. But after months, then years, of trying with no success, the conversations shifted. It stopped being about when we'd have children and started being about why we hadn't. Each doctor's appointment brought worse news. Each test result more disappointing than the last. I could feel it creeping up on us, this sense of failure that neither of us could shake. Tim was supportive at first. He would hold my hand and tell me we could try again, or that it didn't matter as long as we had each other. But over time, the strain showed. I started to notice how he avoided looking at me when we were around my parents, how he'd stiffen when the topic of kids came up. I could see it in his eyes, the doubt, the frustration, the helplessness. It killed me to know that I was the reason we couldn't start a family. My parents, of course, didn't help. My mother, especially, became relentless. Every time we visited, she had some new piece of unsolicited advice. "Have you tried this fertility diet? I heard acupuncture works wonders. Maybe you're just too stressed, you should quit your job." And when those didn't work, she turned to subtle jabs. "You know, Tim would make a wonderful father. It's such a shame." I tried to block it out, but Tim couldn't. Slowly, my parents got inside his head. I remember one evening, after yet another family dinner filled with their not-so-subtle hints, Tim and I argued. "Maybe they're right," he had said, his voice filled with frustration. "Maybe we're not doing enough. Maybe we need to try something else." His words stung, not because of their content, but because of how much weight they carried. He was starting to doubt me. Us. I poured every bit of myself into trying to fix it, fix us. We went to counseling. I researched every possible treatment. And we even talked about adoption. But nothing seemed to be enough. My parents had planted a seed in Tim's mind, and it grew roots deep inside him. And then came the day that broke everything. We were sitting in the living room when Tim dropped the bombshell. "I've been talking to your parents," he began, his voice tense. "And maybe they're right. Maybe I do deserve better." My heart stopped. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. "What are you talking about?" He couldn't even look at me. "This isn't working. You and we're not working." It felt like I was falling. Like the ground had crumbled beneath me and I was grasping at nothing. "Not working?" My voice cracked. "We're going through a rough patch. But, Tim, you promised. We're supposed to get through this together." He finally met my eyes. But his were filled with something I hadn't seen before: regret. "I can't do this anymore. I'm tired. And I know you are too. We've been trying for years. And it's not happening. Maybe it's time to accept that and move on." "Move on? You want to move on from me? Because I can't give you a baby?" I was shaking, the anger and hurt swirling together like a storm inside me. "That's not what I'm saying," he replied. But I could hear it in his voice. He was lying to himself, trying to soften the blow. "But I want more. And I think, maybe I need more." It was like someone had ripped my heart out of my chest. "Need more? I'm your wife. Tim. I thought we were a team." "We were," he whispered. "But your parents, they've been talking to me. And they think I could have a better life. I deserve to have a family. And maybe you're not the one who can give that to me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My parents? My own parents were behind this. I felt sick, nauseous with betrayal. "You've been talking to my parents? They told you to leave me?" He didn't answer. But the silence said enough. I stood up, my legs trembling. "So that's it? You're just going to listen to them? Walk away from me because they think you deserve better?" My voice rose, tears threatening to spill. "I thought we were stronger than this." Tim didn't respond. He just looked away, his silence speaking louder than any words could. And in that moment, I realized I had lost him. My parents had won. They had convinced him that I wasn't enough, that I couldn't give him the life he deserved. And now, they were taking him from me. That night, Tim packed his bags and left. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't offer any parting words of comfort. He just walked out the door. And I watched as the man I loved, my husband, my partner, left me behind. The days that followed were a blur of pain and disbelief. My parents didn't even try to hide their satisfaction. My mother called me the next day, acting as if she hadn't just played a role in destroying my marriage. "I'm so sorry, sweetie," she had said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "But maybe this is for the best. You'll see. Tim deserves to be happy. And so do you." I hung up on her. I couldn't listen to it anymore. Weeks passed, and the silence in the house became unbearable. I was left with the remnants of a life I no longer recognized. Every room, every piece of furniture, every photograph reminded me of the future I was supposed to have, the one that was stolen from me. I tried to move on, but it wasn't easy. Everywhere I went, I saw reminders of what I had lost: happy couples pushing strollers, families at the park, children laughing and playing. It was a constant reminder of my failure, of the life I couldn't give to the man I loved. And as much as I wanted to blame Tim for walking away, I knew the real culprits. My parents had manipulated him, convinced him that he deserved better. And he believed them. They had always had a way of getting into people's heads, twisting things to fit their version of reality. And in the end, they had succeeded in destroying my marriage. I don't know if I'll ever fully recover from this. The pain is still raw, the wound fresh. But if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that sometimes the people who are supposed to love and support you the most can be the ones who hurt you the deepest. As for Tim, I don't know where he is now. I heard through the grapevine that he's seeing someone new, someone younger, someone who can give him the family he always wanted. And my parents? They've cut me off completely. In their eyes, I failed them too. But despite everything, I'm still standing. I may be broken, but I'm not defeated. I'll find my way, even if I have to do it alone. Months have passed, and though the pain still lingers, I've begun to rebuild. I've cut ties with my parents, knowing that no relationship is worth the destruction they caused. I've moved to a smaller apartment, my own space, free from the shadows of what could have been. Some days are harder than others, but I'm learning to breathe again. Slowly, I've come to realize that my worth was never defined by what I could or couldn't give. I've started therapy, focusing on healing the wounds left by those I trusted most. And as I stand here, looking out at the city from my new balcony, I feel a flicker of hope. Life didn't turn out the way I expected. But it's still mine to live. I deserve better. 2. Better than what they gave me.